Season 1, Episode 3. I don't have a title yet. We'll see if we can come up with something. Most of it's going to be, we're going to try to do a top 5 list. I heard on YouTube that's a way to get views. My top 5 list is going to be top 5 reasons we're going to be screwed over the next couple of years when it comes to economics and our finances. So we'll just get right into it. This is in no particular order. I will save the last one for what I think is going to be the most indicating. But we'll start with number 5. Interest rates are going through the roof. As interest rates go up across the board for credit, loans for homes, cars, it's going to pretty much stifle and move some of the people that would be buying stuff to not. Especially homes, new homes are kind of a barometer of keeping a lot of things going. That encompasses a ton in the economy, from the lumber to the contractors. It encompasses a lot of people. So with home interest rates going up, which I think is at 6.9%, close to 7. When I drove by downtown Chicago or 294 in Chicago by O'Hare, they have a home interest rate loan thing. 30-year fix was 6.9. If you bought points, it's like 6.5 or something like that. Just to give you an example, I think my refi that I did back in 2020, in the middle of the Chinese virus, I refied at 2.5 interest rate. And I lost a year or two on the refi. I went from 17, I think, down to 15 years left back in 2020 with the refi because everything was the rates were so low, 7%. You can almost plan on paying triple what you paid for your house when it's all said and done on a 30-year mortgage. I wish I would have, originally when I bought this house, I wish I would have did a 30 or a 15-year. Kind of regret it a little bit now, but I can already see the light at the end of the tunnel. We're almost through it. Plus with the refis, we're good. But that's one, as far as the economy goes, that is going to be a driver of how screwed up we're going to be over the next couple of years. Number 4, inflation at 6%. They did give everybody a bunch of raises over the last couple of years. So all the companies are going to charge more for everything. As they charge more for everything, the inflation goes up. That's not good. With everything that's going on right now, and the prices keep going up with stuff. Even though wages did go up, I don't think they went up enough to overcome the inflation that's happening right now. Grocery prices are through the roof. Gas is almost back, at least in my area over here in Wisconsin, is back up to $3.69 today. I think I paid per gallon. So that's going back up through the roof, which that'll change again come Memorial Weekend when what they call the summer season travel is going on. That's going to be another hard hit. So with interest rates and inflation, those are 2 big things right off the giddy up. So that's number 5 and number 4. Number 3, we have the unemployment rate. Unemployment rate is like 3.9%, but yet as I drive between Milwaukee and Chicago, all I see are now hiring signs everywhere, from factories to restaurants to fast food restaurants or fast food places, to warehousing, forklift operators, jobs that are advertising like $20 an hour. They've raised their dollar per hour for their hiring. Just to give you an example, where I'm domiciled at, their warehouse was 2 years ago was at $16 an hour. They are now advertising signs and billboards for $21 an hour to generate people to come in. So obviously the 3.9% unemployment rate, there's something not right with that number, with the amount of ads you see for people hiring. There's not enough. I don't know if that's the mass influx of retirees in 2020 and all the free money everybody got. They're not counted in the workforce, which is what I think is the problem. So if you're not counted in the workforce, you're not counted against the unemployment rate. So the available workers are at 3.9%, but the amount of jobs that are available supersedes the amount of workers that are available. That's not good either. You can't have more jobs than you have workers. So that's a problem. And that one kind of makes me scratch my head. I don't know what we're doing with that, or how you fix that. I don't know what the deal is with that. I don't know how people are living when you have that many jobs available and that low unemployment rate. That is going to cause employers to raise their wage to draw people in. So as those people as companies raise their hiring rate or pay their employees more, that's going to cost more for the products they produce, which is going to be another driver to the inflation. So all this stuff, all these 5 things that I'm going to come up with are all kind of going to tie together, leading to the last one that I have, which I think is a big one. 2 is the push for electric vehicles. And I guess before I get too far with this, a lot of this, because I do have a trucking background, trucking is an economic leading indicator, and I see warning signs everywhere in my industry that are not good for all of us. So the push for EVs and electric vehicles, they're pushing it hard, especially in California, for everything is from your passenger vehicles also into the trucking industry. The trucking industry, I believe there is a segment, and before I get too far, I am all for electric vehicles. I think the power to torque and the instant power, I think, is amazing on an electric motor compared to a gas-powered engine or an ICE. I think electric is the way to go. The other alternative fuels, I think, are garbage. Hydrogen, propane, CNG, all that stuff. The infrastructure is not there. When it comes to electric, the infrastructure is already kind of there. They have to build the grid up a little farther, but I think it's easier to implement. So I'm all for the electric push, just not at the rate they're trying to push it at, especially with what they're talking about in California with outlawing all fossil fuel burning trucks by the year of 2036 or something like that. Just 13 years down the road. I know stuff when they push stuff out, it might get pushed back a little farther beyond that, but who knows? If 2036 is the deadline, they're gonna what they call, quote, outlaw all fossil fuel burning trucks. That's a pipe dream. If that's the case, I'm just gonna say stop pulling stuff out of California and stop putting stuff into it. Let that produce just rot. We will find another place in the country to grow that stuff. We'll have to pay more for it again. I am a believer that good food should cost more. We don't need to eat the way we eat. And you can just see by the amount of people that are fat and obese. They need to slow down on the food that they eat anyway. And maybe you shouldn't buy a $2 bag of chips. Maybe you should spend like $8 on a nice cut of meat. So I'm okay for paying more for your groceries. If you eat right and eat less, it'd probably be better for you instead of just eating garbage all the time. So, because donuts and Doritos is a way to go for some people. I see them all the time rolling out their little baggies of McDonald's Big Macs or whatever and scarfing them on the food with their little thing of fries and a Coke sitting next to them. Think they're doing something good because they got a Diet Coke, but yet they're eating I don't even know how much real food is in that Big Mac, but that's another topic I'll get into at some point too, when it comes to health and food. So that's number 2, to push the EVs. They're going to push that too fast. We don't have the infrastructure set up for it, especially in the trucking industry. They're doing huge incentives and subsidies, government-wise, to help with Tesla and Nikola, who's coming out with a hydrogen electric or something like that. But Tesla's the big one with their electric truck, which again, in certain segments of the industry, probably work out pretty good. When you get into what they call final mile stuff, that'll be great. It won't work as an over-the-road operation. You can't go from California to New York with an EV, not on time frame, especially with time-sensitive freight. That's not going to happen. You're going to end up paying a ton more for your products and services, which is probably what's going to happen anyway when they go to EVs. Those trucks, the last I heard, some of those Tesla trucks are in excess of over 300,000 to 400,000. The Nikola one is, I think, pushing 700,000. So when you and diesel powered ones right now are 150 to 250, depending on what you got on it for specs, and some of the custom stuff that you might want on it. But you can get an entry level one prior to the Chinese virus. You get an entry level one for probably 150,000. Have it nicely equipped. Now those prices are up to 220. Used truck prices were through the roof a year ago because everybody wanted in on the market because the rates were so high. That's what's going to lead me into my number one reason why I think we're going to be screwed over the next couple of years when it comes to our economy and finances, and we're all going to feel the hurt of this. That EV push with the electric stuff. So all those trucks the electric trucks that cost $400,000 to $600,000, $400,000 to $500,000 to $600,000 are all subsidized by the government with credits. That's money that we as taxpayers give to the company. So Tesla's going to charge, we'll just say $300,000, $350,000, I think it's $375,000 or something like that for their truck. You as a consumer, if you buy it as a trucking company, when they buy it, you might only pay $200,000 because you're going to get a bunch of incentives back because it's an electric vehicle. Well, Tesla's still going to make that same $350,000 even though you bought it for $200,000. That extra $150,000 is going to come from our government money. That's our taxpayer dollars that are going to fund that. That comes out of our wallet, which could go to somewhere else. Government gets its big hands and stuff into subsidizing things. Government doesn't do a whole lot right. They're not very efficient. They want electric vehicles because they're more efficient as far as polluting the world instead of a diesel engine. And then again with those alternative vehicles like hydrogen and propane and CNG, well, none of them have the same BTU output that a diesel powered truck does, diesel powered engine. So electric, I don't know about coal or however you power the electricity, what the comparison is BTU wise compared to the diesel, but I know as far as hydrogen, propane, CGN, LPG or LNG, CNG, all those other alternative fuels, none of them compare power wise to what a diesel engine can do. There are now trucks that are out there. Volvo's running out one with some iTorque spec that'll run close to 10 miles to the gallon. Most common trucks, which is why there's a big issue for the push for pollution control in the trucking industry. They say the average is like 6.5 miles per gallon, but there are trucks out there that can do 10. Some are in excess of 11 or 12, which doubles the miles per gallon, which means you're cutting half the emissions for twice the mileage. So, or the same emissions and twice the mileage, which is a huge gain, which is where I think they need to push more of the technology, how to keep cutting those emissions down. Kind of like they did over here in Oak Creek, Wisconsin, where they put the power plants in. When they were for the power plants, they redid the smokestacks. They put scrubbers in to capture the coal carbon, and then they instead of it getting released into the air, they actually capture it. I think they're called scrubbers or something like that. And then it goes to a treatment plant to do something with it so it's safely released back into the environment in soil or something like that. I don't know exactly what they do. I don't know have the details. So there are things that we can do already. America as a whole does a really good job of cutting its emissions over the last 2 or 3 decades. We used to be the number one polluter. We're now number 2. China has taken us over as the number 1 polluter. I don't know what the last stat I read was. It's some stupid number of they're bringing on a new coal power plant once every 6 months or something like that. They just keep pumping them out because they need the power. The demand for power is so great that they just keep creating more coal power plants. So we can't keep up with that as far as we keep cutting our emissions down at the expense of the world. Like, we're not only are we the world's police, but now we're also the world's way of trying to set an example of how to cut carbon emissions. But yet, when you have a country like China that just seems like they don't give a shit, and they produce at twice the level, then whatever we cut back, they're going to add to it, so it's a net wash. Like, it didn't do anything. So we have to suffer by getting pushed into EVs with an electrical grid that can't handle it. We don't want to add any more coal plants to add more electric capacity to the grid. So none of this makes sense with me, and as far as the electric vehicles that are coming on. You got California that does brownouts and things like that already because they don't have the capacity to meet the demand that they have for electric. So, and then you want to add a bunch of vehicles that are electric. You can't already meet the demand of just a normal everyday house, factories, works. This is all just baffling to me. And to me, to get to the number one, I heard earlier this year that I've always known that the trucking industry was always a number one leading economic indicator. Rates have fallen through the roof in the trucking industry. Back in the middle of COVID or the Chinese virus, you could get anywhere between. Let's go pre-virus. We'll say the standard rate was like, we'll say $225 for dry van, maybe $250 for reefer, $275 depending on the season for flatbed. That was really good money pre-virus. Then the virus hit and stuff took a tank because there was no workers and you could, but we still stayed running. Rates started going up because the truckers needed to meet the demand to move everything around. So rates started going up. I think at the peak was last year. There was stuff that was shipping for anywhere between $3 to $4 a mile, and that's a lot for especially owner operators and even the large companies, even if they're on contract rates. And that all came to an end this year. Earlier this year, Knight-Swift, I think, bought U.S. Express. Those are over-the-road companies. So it's already starting to happen. The rates have fallen so far that trucking companies aren't going to be able to pay their drivers because, again, back when the virus hit, to meet the demand, they incentivized by raising the wage for drivers to get more drivers in, to create more capacity, to get people their needed supplies. I mean, grocery stores were taking a hit. Everybody was bottoming out, every grocery store, so you needed to re-meet that supply. So they incentivized and raised their rates. Well, they're not taking that money away, and now that rates have fallen, trucking companies are losing money. So Knight-Swift bought out U.S. Express earlier this year. So that's the first big domino to fall. And I don't have the exact numbers. Swift is I think the largest publicly owned trucking company. Schneider is I think the world's largest privately owned trucking company. They each have in excess of, I want to say, like 20,000 trucks. And again, I'm ballparking numbers here. I don't have specifics. U.S. Express is in that same OTR market. That's over the road truck driving. And I think they had 7,500 trucks or something like that when Swift bought them, added to their capacity now. So that's the first big domino to fall in the trucking industry, was another large carrier falling. And then today I saw the news that FedEx Freight is closing 29 locations. FedEx Freight is they're a large LTL carrier. FedEx Freight is not FedEx Ground or FedEx Express that we normally think of. FedEx Freight is owned by FedEx, but it's a separate division. And they do more LTL stuff. So like your Roadways, Old Dominion, places like that. And that's a very large trucking company. And they're going to close 29 locations and furlough a bunch of people and consolidate some stuff. So when big places like that in the industry, in my industry, start closing doors and merging, we're in for some tough times. Those driver jobs go away and they start laying a bunch of people off, and the rates start collapsing. You'd think that would mean that the rates on the shipping side of it for a consumer would go down. That hasn't been the case in most of the. I don't know why that is. As rates go down for shipping, you'd think the rates would go down for the product. I have a sneaky feeling with that because it ties into the employment rate. Those places that so they're paying cheaper costs for shipping, but yet they have to pay more to get employees in. They don't have enough employees to still meet the demand of the supply. And then so this all kind of ties together. Inflation, you're not going to buy a bunch of stuff anymore because you're going to be a little more cost conscious. So if you're not buying as much stuff, the price should go down with that too. So shipping rates are going down, the demand goes down, but yet the prices of goods are still up, and the employment rate is down. Like none of this makes sense. So there's my top 5 list of why I think we're going to be in this for a long haul, and it's going to get worse before it gets better. Just to reiterate the list: interest rates were the first, inflation was the second, unemployment rates were the third, push to EVs was the fourth, and my top one was the trucking industry companies collapsing. So that's my top 5 list of why I think we're screwed over the next couple of years. And hunker down and start saving your pennies. And if you haven't already, I don't even know where to end this because none of this is going to be good. But till next time, talk to you later, fellas. Bye.